It is slowly turning milder from the west, and the first signs of that across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland into West Wales and the southwest as we begin the weekend. An area of cloud and some patchy light rain in places. That falling as snow over some of the hills of Western Scotland, but very minimal amounts. Further east, it's dry, it's crisp, and it's bright, although there are still some freezing fog patches persisting into the afternoon and evening. Where that happens, temperatures not rising over freezing. Likewise for any snow-covered parts of upland northern UK, it's going to stay very cold indeed. So some bright skies there for the northeast of Scotland. A lot of cloud, though, approaching Scotland from the west, and those outbreaks of rain continuing into the evening across the west of Scotland. Some brighter spells emerging for Northern Ireland. Slightly less cold compared with recent days. Similar theme for Wales and the southwest, 5 to 7 Celsius. But you can see how those temperatures are falling once again as the sun goes down across the east of England. And it's going to be another frosty one for southeast England and northeast Scotland overnight. Elsewhere, patchy cloud coming and going, I think, through the night. 1 or 2 mist and fog patches forming. Relatively quiet night with light winds and clear spells. Not much rain or snow out there. The temperatures where we've got those clear spells once again dropping below freezing, but it's milder in the west, and that mild air is going to sweep across the country as we go through Sunday and the start of next week. It begins in the north, actually. Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing increasing cloud through Sunday and outbreaks of rain move in, the breeze picks up, and temperatures much higher than recent days, 6 to 9 Celsius. Further south, it stays cold but dry until early next week.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
On demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data, but it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, if he then gone on to lose, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went on to win, at least they got the story right, but before it had happened. So what it seems to happen is that the AI farms existing stories, and what it has done, that's the alert. We can see the alert there now, and it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that it's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source and then summarises them into one. That's going to be my question. Into one alert.
Looks to me like you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
So the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation. Yes. And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, you could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out, because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it and sends it out even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, I'm Miriam Cates here with Adam Cherry and this is Saturday Morning Live.
Great to have your company this morning and we've got an action-packed show ahead.
Well, the country is being battered by cold temperatures and there are warnings today that gas supplies are running low, threatening a blackout. We'll be joined by an expert to discuss how likely it is that temperatures could plunge as low as minus 20 degrees Celsius.
It's 20. Meanwhile, firefighters in Los Angeles continue to fight raging wildfires as the death toll rises to 11 and over 10,000 homes and businesses are destroyed. Journalist Nelson Aspen will join us live from the United States to give us the latest.
And many of you may be inspired this new year to take on a new exercise routine. The founder of an all-natural protein brand, Hermosa, and one of the people behind Barry's boot camps, Erica Tomeo, will be here to share her top tips.
And there's plenty going on in the world of TV, with The Traitors stirring up plenty of reaction and Dancing on Ice set to return to our screens tomorrow. Showbiz journalist Ed Gleave will be here to give us the latest. And we'll have all the day's top stories with broadcaster Esther Stanhope and former Apprentice star Trey Lowe.
So, welcome to Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. We'd love to hear what you think. So please send your views and comments throughout the show by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay.
Yeah, but before we do anything else, Tatiana Sanchez has all your news headlines.
Adam, thank you. The top stories. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says there's no choice but to engage with China as she seeks to restart Britain's formal economic relationship with the nation.
The fiscal rules that I set out in my budget in October are non-negotiable, and growth is the number one mission of this government, to make our country better off. And that's why I'm in China, to unlock tangible benefits for British businesses exporting and trading around the world, to ensure that we have greater access to the second biggest economy in the world. And when we have these pragmatic conversations with Chinese leaders and indeed with Chinese businesses, we will always be acting in Britain's national interest.
Rachel Reeves flew out yesterday after ignoring calls from opposition parties to cancel the trip because of market turmoil at home. The past week has seen a drop in the pound and an increase in government borrowing costs, which has fuelled speculation of more spending cuts or tax rises. The Tories have accused the Chancellor of having fled to China rather than explain how she'll fix the UK's economy, while the Liberal Democrats say she should stay in Britain and announce a Plan B to address market volatility. The British government's independent terrorism legislation reviewer says politicians need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture when it comes to stateless persons and the balance of national security. These comments come after Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said he'd been thoughtful when asked if the UK should consider bringing Shamima Begum back to the UK. This is what Farage had said. "I've never wanted to. I've instinctively never wanted to, but I'm now thoughtful. I'm thoughtful. I don't classify her as an all-out ISIS killer, so she's a lesser part of the equation." Now, this comes after US President-elect Donald Trump's incoming counter-terror chief said that ISIS members in Syria should be allowed home. Reform Chairman Zaya Youssef responded to the report with our political editor Christopher Hope last night.
If anyone actually cares about truth, then they should actually look what Nigel actually said, which was that what's happened in Syria is that there's been regime change. And let's be clear about what's happened as a result of that. You have jihadists in senior government positions. If you are a British citizen and you are concerned that there are people in Syrian prisons that are security threats to the United Kingdom, where would you rather they were sitting? Inside a prison in a now potentially jihadist-controlled Syria, or inside a maximum security prison inside the United Kingdom? And that's what the point Nigel was making.
Nigel was forced to hit back at the reports, writing on social media saying, "I've never wanted to allow Shamima Begum back into Britain, as I literally say in this interview." In other news, the Health Secretary has warned the use of inflammatory language over grooming gangs risks vilifying entire communities. He also says he fears rhetoric could lead to atrocities such as the Christchurch mosque shootings in New Zealand, which killed more than 50 people. Speaking to The Guardian, West Streeting says, there are people in my community who have either Pakistani heritage or look different who are now more fearful today than they were before. Los Angeles authorities have declared a local health emergency for the whole county due to poor air quality as fire and smoke from the wildfires blankets the area. They've killed at least 11 people and destroying over 10,000 homes and businesses. California's governor has called for an independent investigation into how critical fire hydrants ran out of water and were impaired. Hundreds of animals are being cared for by humane groups in Southern California, from cats and dogs to horses, birds and tortoises. Several rescue groups are hosting the animals while wildfires rage in the area. Now, back home, temperatures dropped to minus 18.7 degrees in the UK's coldest January night in 15 years last night. The Met Office says in the most northern region of the Highlands, minus 18.7 degrees was recorded. It's the coldest January overnight temperature since 2010, when temperatures dropped below minus 15 several times at locations across the UK. Much of the UK endured below freezing temperatures overnight, dropping to minus 11 in Shap and Cumbria, with Heathrow recording minus 5. Now in sport, David Moyes has been appointed Everton manager for the second time following the departure of Sean Dyche. Moyes spent 11 years at Goodison Park before leaving to replace Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United in 2013 and has been out of work since departing West Ham in the summer. The 61-year-old returns with the Toffees, hovering a single point above the relegation zone. The first game of his second spell in charge is on Wednesday. And Sam Moore, who sang Soul Man and other 1960s hits in the legendary Sam and Dave duo, has died at the age of 89. Moore, who influenced musicians including Michael Jackson, A.I. Green and Bruce Springsteen, died yesterday in Florida due to complications while recovering from surgery, according to his publicist. Moore was inducted with Dave Prater, who died in 1988 in a car crash, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1992. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More news from me in an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, the UK has had its coldest night in 15 years yesterday evening, as the temperature dropped to minus 18 degrees Celsius in the Scottish Highlands. Temperatures are set to fall again today as the cold snap continues.
Now, the freeze comes as British Gas have warned that there is only a week of supply left, with gas reserves concerningly low. Number 10 insisted yesterday that the UK has got enough natural gas supply to make it through the winter.
Well, joining us now to talk about the cold snap and the supply issue is the environment editor at The Daily Sceptic, Chris Morrison. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. How serious is this? A week worth of gas supply left. Do we need to worry about that?
Well, of course, it's very bad news. It's actually a very good case study in what happens when Kelsoprees, we have a cold snap in the winter, in the middle of January. The temperatures will be very, very low, and there's huge pressure on gas. But it's OK, because we can buy it from elsewhere, because, of course, under the new government, we no longer see it appropriate to actually frack for gas. Well, we never did anyway, or take new supplies out of the North Sea. We're relying on wind. So let's look, just before I came into the studio, let's look at what GridWatch shows us. 7% of the electricity is produced by wind and practically nothing from solar. Gas back up to 60%. So all of that nonsense that you heard about how wind is producing more than gas, on average, probably it is. But in fact, the more wind you put in, the more expensive the whole thing gets. The answer, as Miliband says, is blowing in the winds, and the answers are blown in the wind. Wind power is extremely expensive, it's unreliable, it's intermittent, and it is being pursued simply for a political purpose. And we are seeing this case study now, where we see very little wind. It's the third period we've had this year of a wind drought. And I'm talking about wind going down to 2-3%. So this is the third one we've had. Complete reliance on gas, And what are we doing? We're going to start mothballing the gas turbines, or at least we're not going to be replacing them. We're going to push towards wind being 50, 60, 70% by 2030. What on earth are we going to do when we get a position now where the temperature goes down to this extent and we don't have any really realistic supplies? People will die. I mean, it's as serious as that. People will die in their thousands. People die of the cold, not necessarily, that much from the heat. So as I say, it's a good case study.
And Chris, the problem with buying our gas from overseas is that it's a strange kind of market, isn't it? The ships carrying the liquid natural gas can be diverted at the last minute to go to a different, higher bidder. So unless we have these reserves, it's a very insecure supply, even if we are willing to buy it from abroad, isn't it?
Well, we don't have much reserve anywhere. I think we closed down a huge gas reserve field a few years ago, and the reason is that we had plenty of gas under our feet or out in the North Sea. But you're right, if carbon is your thing, bringing in natural gas from the Gulf and from America is probably the worst thing you can do, because you've got to compress it, you've got to take it huge distances by sea, and then you've got to unload it and all this sort of thing. Whereas we could just take it literally, a suburb outside Blackpool. I mean, it's as simple as that. We could provide, well-paid jobs, fracking for gas in industrial or previously industrial ages. We could. I'll tell you how ridiculous the whole thing is. We had Friends of the Earth. You remember the anti-fracking campaigns. On about £40,000 annual salaries, going round saying that it was causing earthquakes as similar to the intensity of somebody falling off a chair. And this is an area where, at the time, annual salaries were about 25,000. And these areas could have enormous benefits from fracking gas, even if you don't want to frack gas. And eventually it will run out, although probably the amount of gas we're finding all the time, natural gas and these new techniques of fracking, it probably will last hundreds of years. But even if you don't like it, we still need it. Because what under Miliband's plan, what under this new government's plan, is that they're going to get to 2030 when they decarbonise so-called the electricity grid, which only provides, by the way, 20% of our energy. They're going to decarbonise it, but they're still going to have a complete set of gas turbines on standby. That is going to, as they say, the more wind you put into the grid, the more expensive it becomes, because you have to have this backup power. Now, those gas turbines were all built 20, 30 years ago. They're coming to the end of their useful life, or they will need a lot of money spent on upgrading them. So you've got to provide a whole system of gas for the time as we have today, when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine very much. The cost is absolutely horrendous. And then, of course, you have to say, well, are the gas companies going to actually provide gas on that basis? Why would you, build new gas turbines, for instance, knowing that it's going to be so intermittent? Where are the careers in the gas business? How are you going to staff these places? In other words, if you only rely on gas as Miliband wants to for 5%, you will just end the gas industry. Plus the fact, as I said, you're not actually, fracking.
Chris, I'm really sorry. We're going to have to leave it there, but we will be watching this situation closely and hopefully have you on again soon. We're going to move on to our paper review now. We're delighted to be joined by broadcaster Esther Stanhope and former Apprentice star Trey Lowe. Good morning, both of you.
Morning, guys.
Good morning.
How's it getting in? Cold spell getting in?
Yeah, my toes are pretty cold.
I literally only came about 2 minutes. That was quite easy. I lived 2 minutes away.
Oh, that's all right.
I was lucky.
Yeah. I'm originally from Yorkshire. We were talking about this earlier. And looking at all the snow they've had, and my kids are very jealous because their former schools were closed last week. But, yeah, it's going to be cold for a while.
I wish it was snowing, though. That would be quite nice when you wake up.
I love snow.
Freezing, but it's
A
snowing.
snow day is not as fun as it is when you're about 11, is it?
No.
You still have to come in and do
I know,
something.
yeah, that's
There we
the
go.
thing,
Anyway.
that's the thing.
I fell over in the snow, so I'm a bit scared of it now.
Yeah,
Right, well, let's be careful. Should we talk about what we've seen in the newspapers?
Yes.
Where do you want to start, guys?
Let's do the people under 20, or let's have a look. People in their late 20s, living with their parents. I think that's testament to how hard things are, isn't it? I'm old enough to remember when it was more Southern Europeans that would do that, like Italian, Spanish, and we would kind of look and think, we're so independent and we leave home the minute we're 18 or come up from university. And now it's just like, I mean, it must be hard for you, Esther, right, as someone who's got a kid that's 19, because you're probably looking forward to an empty nest, have fun, let me go out and explore the world, and suddenly suddenly, Mum, I'm home. It's like,
Well, she's
how
watching.
long?
Mirabelle's watching, and she's a big fan of yours, so I can't say anything too bad.
I'm sure she's lovely.
Mirabelle, it's been so great having you home, but I'm quite looking forward to you going back to university. And if you were here for in your late 20s, if you were home in your late 20s, I don't know how much toilet roll and products we get.
Sorry, go ahead.
This is about housing costs, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is because housing costs, rent costs now are so high that in order to be able to live or save up for a deposit, young people have got no choice, have they, but to move back in often with the parents.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a landlord, so I probably sound a bit guilty doing that. I am, yeah, but I mean, I'm a very fair one. But it is extortionate because you're getting to the point where, you know, your rent might be as much as 60% of your income. It's almost like impossible to live like that.
Yeah.
So it does make sense. I actually think it's a good thing. I mean, you see some very successful communities, let's say the Asian community, one of the wealthiest communities, they do live at home for a very long time. Yeah. So it's actually a good thing to stay at home, save money, and then go out and maybe buy your own home.
Except I heard some very bizarre analysis on this morning. Not on this channel.
Diamond.
Not on this channel, saying that people are living at home longer because they're not getting married and having children. But of course, it's the opposite. People are not getting married and having children because they're living at home longer.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest indicators of low fertility is how long you live with your parents, for very obvious reasons.
Oh, really? I thought it was too much coffee.
Or tea, which we'll come on to next. But, I mean, it is concerning, isn't it? Because where does it end? You're doing it now, cost of living, but then how bad is it going to get? I mean, people are just literally going to live in that same home for generation after generation. Something needs to be done. I mean, even as a landlord, I say, there needs to be some level of affordable housing, some sort of incentive for people who are looking to start families, etc. I don't know how you're going to do it, because economically...
Houses would be a start, wouldn't it, surely?
And even that is a lot harder than it seems. I mean, their targets and the reality is a different world, so I don't know. Yeah. You know?
I think it's time for us to be more creative. I work with a lot of business people and help them pitch, and I work with a lot of property experts as well. And people are coming up with new affordable housing solutions. I think this is, you know, you're an ex-apprentice, you know, one of the good ones. Surely it's time to think of a creative way out of this problem. Some kind of, you know, rent system where you share a house with really cool people, or, you know, there must be
a solution. Or even, you know, like for local authorities to allow you to expand your home so you can live with your... I mean, I look after my mum and dad. They're both elderly, so it's nothing wrong with that. When I say I live with them, I live above them.
Yeah.
We have a big house, I live above them. But there are some really good benefits for living with your family. I think that's quite nice that you can take care of your family, you live close. So maybe local authorities should allow us to extend our homes more to accommodate that. And at the same time, look at affordable housing and really look outside of the box.
Young people want their independence and, as they say, their own family and so on. Should we move on to the next story? This one's lovely. This was interesting. So, the best and worst supermarket tea bags.
Tea bags. Oh, do you know...
Mira and I, we were just talking about this previously. Miriam doesn't speak for you, but you say you don't like tea.
You're from Yorkshire.
You're from Yorkshire, you don't like tea.
I don't really like tea. I'm a coffee person. But having read about this morning, I always buy the cheapest tea bags because I don't like tea. But now I'm wondering if I don't like tea because I buy cheap tea.
You're from Yorkshire and you don't buy Yorkshire tea?
No.
That's a disgrace.
It's cheapest.
I challenge you when you go home today.
But Yorkshire tea did not do particularly well.
No.
The Telegraph
This is in the Telegraph, isn't it? So they've ranked them all.
I don't agree with the Telegraph.
Okay.
Right,
tea pigs are too fiddly. Are they the ones with the funny little triangular tea bags with the hard
and also
shell?
it was something like £4.50 for 40 bags.
Ridiculous.
It is a lot, though, isn't it?
But Miriam, that might be the...
Maybe that's the answer.
Okay,
I'll give it a try.
Miriam, I really do suggest that you get some mates with you and just get maybe four of their suggestions. But you've got to have Yorkshire tea, because Yorkshire tea, I love tea. And I care about tea deeply, and Yorkshire tea is definitely the best one, in my opinion.
Other brands are available.
I have tried, you know, other brands like Twinings. In other countries, Lipton's. I mean, Lipton's.
they're really
in America, they always give you
as well.
Yeah, if you go anywhere other than in Europe, if you go to France or Spain or Italy, they always give you this awful, like weak, horrible. They give you the water which is cooled down.
Yeah.
If you put a tea bag in water that isn't boiling, it will always slightly completely foam up. It's gross.
I put the milk in first, so I'm guilty of
Milk in first?
The milk in first? And then the tea bag?
No, but if the tea bag's in a teapot brewing, that's fine.
No,
you put the milk and then tea bag.
Yeah.
That clogs up the tea bag.
There's going to be a lot of your say on this.
Cool.
Sorry,
That's
very
cool.
quickly.
Do you know what's funny? I actually was going to make my own tea bag brand called Vitamin Tea. Boom, boom.
Not trading.
Because I'm like you, I used to be really big into tea. I'm kind of moving to coffee because my wife is big on coffee. And I thought tea should be functional, like, you know, vitamins and things like that. That was my idea to do that.
But I don't
I think tea, I find it a little bit boring.
Oh, no,
just a little bit.
When I was pregnant, I drank a lot of cranberry tea because I had bad morning sickness and I couldn't stand coffee. But now I can't even stand the smell of it because it reminds me of feeling sick.
There you go. I think coffee beats tea.
You know what? The other day I was on a flight back from Madrid when I didn't have a cup of tea for 4 days and it was a nightmare. And I was on the flight and the guy says, "Hi, you know," I said, "Can I have a cup of tea, please?" He went, "Yeah, black tea." And I went, "No, with milk, please." He went, "Oh, okay." And then I saw somebody. He said, "Oh no, we haven't. You know," I said, "Black tea." I said, "No," because I thought he meant black tea without milk. He meant normal tea. And now people are referring to normal tea as black tea. Just be aware, black tea is normal tea. And then I saw somebody else drinking a cup and I went, "How come they've got tea and they've got milk?" He went, "Yeah, they've got black tea." I went, "Yeah, but they've got milk." He went, "Yeah." I went, "Oh, just I said, "Well, I'll have what I have."
English are very
Guys, well, thank you very much for joining us. You're going to be joining us again in the next hour to go through some more stories. In the meantime, how about starting your new year with an incredible £50,000 in cash from us? Doesn't sound too bad, does it? Well, it could all be yours with our biggest Great British giveaway so far. Here's all the details you need for your chance to win £50,000.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Not too bad, eh? Right. Thank you to Esther and Trey again. We will catch up with you later in the show.
Well, up next, we're going to be crossing live to the US, where journalist Nelson Aspen will bring us up to date with the devastating wildfires impacting Los Angeles. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Underestimate what you did, because to do it in their backyard as well, I bet they weren't happy about it, were they, Brad?
No, definitely not. Well, it makes it all the more sweeter. So they're usually pretty dominant in a two-man event, but four-man's usually where we can challenge them. And yeah, we managed to do it yesterday and put down 2 solid runs. And yeah,
so yeah, funding was a big issue for us in the last quad, but
because of our results recently, we've picked up a lot more funding from UK Sport. So we're well funded now, and but yeah, the Bob is in the back of the van behind us, so we're driving it down to St Moritz as we speak. So yeah, that's how it all works in the background in bobsleigh.
Brad, you're the pilot, correct? So you're up front.
Yeah.
Now, what happens? I always wonder, because I remember seeing John Noakes on. Do you remember John Noakes on Blue Peter when he fell out of the Bob and he ended up showing the back of his backside on TV because he had a big scar on there? So you got the brake man. You're at the front. So where are you then, Aaron? Are you what number are you?
So I'm number 3. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do there? Is it just a matter of it's the running power is what it's all about to get off to a good start, and then you can sit and enjoy the ride?
Yeah, that's it. So for number 2 and myself, number 3, it's all about getting that Bob off the line and then just zipping it up to as high a speed as we can, basically. Yeah. Getting in, staying low, having good aerodynamics, and staying still and let Brad do the work. Yeah, it's definitely not a comfortable position for them because we're bending them and twisting them into quite an uncomfortable position to get as aerodynamic as possible. And when you've got 6 times G's pushing you through that is not... Yeah, not definitely fun. Stiff back this morning, that's for sure.
Because I'm just thinking where me and Eamon would sit. Is it 2 and 3, or would he go at number 4? What do you fancy?
I would be too frightened to do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live, and wildfires continue to rip through California, killing at least 11 people and destroying over 10,000 homes and businesses.
Well, California Governor Gavin Newsom has called for a probe into why fire hydrants in the Palisades area were unusable and why there have been water supply issues across the state. Well, now, Californian locals, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle included, have also been visiting those affected and who've been forced to evacuate their homes.
Well, joining us now from the States is journalist and author Nelson Aspen. Nelson, thanks for joining us. This doesn't seem to be showing any sign of stopping these wildfires, and now there are questions of political leadership. Could this have been not necessarily avoided, but better managed? Is that the question people are asking in the US right now?
That's the question everybody absolutely should be asking. I lived in Los Angeles for 22 years, and so, of course, now every time I look at my phone, I'm hearing from another friend or former neighbor who has had to evacuate. Friends have lost their homes, their pets, their properties, belongings, livelihoods, you name it. And then Governor Gavin Newsom, the governor of the state of California, who has long been positioning himself as the next generation of Democratic leadership, has come out and said he refuses to politicize a disaster. Well, this disaster, you maybe can blame Mother Nature a little bit. I don't think you can blame climate change. This is a failure of infrastructure, of preparedness. This is a failure of leadership. And Governor Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass trying to deflect this to other areas when you've got empty reservoirs sitting on the other side of the mountain is criminal. And there will be heads rolling eventually once they can finally get these things under control, which show no signs of stopping. We've been talking about Malibu and the Palisades and the devastation in Altadena, et cetera. But all these satellite neighborhoods are threatened. Overnight, I woke up this morning to news that Encino, the neighborhoods of Encino, the communities of Brentwood, next up will be Bel Air. I mean, it just is going to keep eating the city unless they can get it under control.
I mean, these are extraordinary scenes, and we're just seeing some of the fires now on the screens. And one of the notable aspects of this story has been, of course, that world-famous celebrities have had their homes destroyed. I think Mel Gibson, Paris Hilton, we've seen. How much sympathy has there been for those celebrities in the United States? Of course, they're human beings like everybody else. They've lost their home. But there has been some kind of sense that, you know, they're wealthy. Why should we feel sorry for them? Is there that sympathy, or is there kind of a hardening of opinion?
Well, I think anybody that just looks a little bit beyond the surface of, oh, poor Billy Crystal, or oh, poor John Goodman, Anthony Hopkins, you know, what the heck are Harry and Meghan doing out there? I mean, it's just baffling to me. But it's not just the celebrity world. This is a community of millions of people. It's the second largest city in our country. The livelihoods, the future. I mean, the future is uncertain. We're right now now supposedly about to start the Hollywood awards season. I think that's all going to be canceled. It's or relegated to Zoom, or just, they'll send you a letter and let you know if you win. I just don't know how the economy will come back. This is worse than COVID. I always thought it would be an earthquake that would get Los Angeles, but now it looks like it's going to be something else.
Now, so let's just move on slightly to the Trump inauguration, which is on the 20th of January, so not long to go. What can we expect there? Of course, we saw him in being sentenced yesterday in court, appearing virtually. Is that going to have an impact on the opening days of the Trump administration? Is that something he's worried about?
No, I don't think it. I think the fact that he now has the moniker of convicted felon, that's something he is very worried about, and he will file an appeal and may very well have that overturned on appeal. He just didn't want to go into his inauguration day with that hanging over him. Regardless, it's going to be a spectacle of epic event, I think, much grander than his first inauguration. Days long of festivities will kick off on January 17th, leading up to the inauguration on the 20th. And we've discussed previously about how a lot of the tech moguls, following Elon Musk's example, are coming to play and to donate to the inauguration fund, whether that's Google or Meta or Amazon. So it's going to be a very lavish days-long event.
Yeah, just to jump in on that point very quickly, Nelson, I saw Mark Zuckerberg appearing on the Joe Rogan podcast yesterday, and he was talking about the Meta's attitude shift on free speech and censorship is not something you would have seen, I don't think, or indeed you didn't see during the Biden administration. Now it seems Trump coming in. Are these tech moguls, as you say, are they shifting position? Is the mood music changing in America on these issues?
I think absolutely so, as it must to survive under the new administration. I mean, the rules are going to change, like it or not. That's the way it's going to be for at least 4 years. So if you want to keep your business going, these are the modifications, the adjustments, the pivots that need to be made.
Of course, one tech business that's not receiving so much support from the Trump administration is TikTok. And of course, there is this ongoing case about whether or not TikTok is under too much influence from the Chinese government. Will it be forced to be sold? How does this interplay with all the other news surrounding tech companies?
Yeah, Miriam, I know you love TikTok. I know you do. And so does Donald Trump.
The worst product ever invented.
Well, I think the fact that Donald Trump feels warmly towards TikTok, because he credits it with helping him get a lot of the youth vote. And I was under the impression that Trump's desire for TikTok's survival would help it. However, I think certainly to my surprise, and maybe to others, the Supreme Court looks set, and they have to make the final decision. They look set to uphold the ban, which would go into effect on January 19th. And unless they can work out some sort of deal where a non-Chinese owner can take over TikTok and save the day at the last minute. Everybody likes a nail biter, so I wouldn't give up hope yet.
Well, Nelson, thank you very much for joining us here live on GB News. We appreciate it.
Well, up next, are you on a New Year's health kick? Our next guest is one of the forces behind Barry's Boot Camp and also has her own all-natural protein brand. Erica Tomeo will be here shortly. You're watching Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's another very cold start out there. Widespread frost for many of us, but not for all. It is slowly turning milder from the west, and the first signs of that across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland into West Wales and the southwest as we begin the weekend. An area of cloud and some patchy light rain in places. That falling as snow over some of the hills of Western Scotland, but very minimal amounts. Further east, it's dry, it's crisp, and it's bright, although there are still some freezing fog patches persisting into the afternoon and evening. Where that happens, temperatures not rising over freezing. Likewise for any snow-covered parts of upland northern UK, it's going to stay very cold indeed. So some bright skies there for the northeast of Scotland. A lot of cloud, though, approaching Scotland from the west, and those outbreaks of rain continuing into the evening across the west of Scotland. Some brighter spells emerging for Northern Ireland. Slightly less cold compared with recent days. Similar theme for Wales and the southwest, 5 to 7 Celsius. But you can see how those temperatures are falling once again as the sun goes down across the east of England. And it's going to be another frosty one for southeast England and northeast Scotland overnight. Elsewhere, patchy cloud coming and going, I think, through the night. 1 or 2 mist and fog patches forming. Relatively quiet night with light winds and clear spells. Not much rain or snow out there. The temperatures where we've got those clear spells once again dropping below freezing, but it's milder in the west, and that mild air is going to sweep across the country as we go through Sunday and the start of next week. It begins in the north, actually. Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing increasing cloud through Sunday and outbreaks of rain move in, the breeze picks up, and temperatures much higher than recent days, 6 to 9 Celsius. Further south, it stays cold but dry until early next week.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live, and you've already been sending in some of your views to gbnews.com/yourso. We've got a few here. Lots of comments about tea, very popular chat. You can't have, says Philip, the perfect cup of tea using tea bags. You need to use loose tea.
Yeah, that's the pro way of doing it, isn't
and
it?
you need, don't you then need one of those kind of sieve balls? That's probably a technically correct name that someone will email it. A sieve ball to put in your teapot then to contain the
once
tea.
a year I'll indulge in that sort of thing. But normally it's just tea bag in the mug.
Yeah, the
milk
way.
First, upsetting everyone, but it just makes it taste better in my opinion.
And you'll like this one, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
Alex says 2 Tetley, 2 sugars, 2 milk. Nice and strong is the only way, not these wishy-washy pretend teas.
Yeah, you see.
Strong
totally
words.
agree. What was that chap's name? Alex, totally agree, Alex. Lots of sugar, lots of milk.
And a couple of comments about housing. We were talking about how people into their late 20s are still living with their parents. Jeff thinks it's rubbish that people can't afford to buy a house. Mandy thinks it's sad that parents want to kick their children out. Why can't they just make their own decision?
I think it's not the parents want to kick them out necessarily. It's just they don't really have a choice, and the kids they want to get on, but they can't.
It depends whether or not the grown-up children contribute to chores and things like that, I guess, doesn't it? I don't know. I'm not at that stage yet. We shall see.
You're not quite there yet.
No, eldest is 16 and a half. So
right, okay. A few years to go.
Yeah.
Right, shall we move on? Because it's that time of the year again when we set new goals and resolutions. Well, I haven't quite done that yet. I've still got time.
Too late now.
And you know what's probably right at the top of everyone's list is fitness.
Yeah, so whether you're aiming to make some gains in the gym or run your first 5K or just feel more confident in your own skin, our next guest has got you covered.
Well, joining us in the studio is Erica Tomeo. Erica, thank you for joining us. You are the founder of Hermosa, the protein brand, get my words out properly, and also the co-founder of Barry's Boot Camp. So thanks for joining us. Just tell us a little bit about your businesses and why you're here.
So it's funny, I'm not the actual co-founder. My husband is the co-founder of Barry's. But I am the founder of Hermosa, which is a protein brand. And so the idea was Barry's helps people with their active lifestyle and routine, and Hermosa helps them with the basics covers of their nutrition. So that's kind of like the idea.
So protein is all the rage at the moment, isn't it? Especially people who want to put on muscle. And you see everywhere ordinary products like cereal bars or yogurts that say they've got added protein. What's the kind of science behind this?
So basically what happens is the older we get, the more we lose our muscle mass. So you kind of have to increase your protein intake. However, the older you get, the kind of like least you eat. And if you're not very aware of like what you're having on a daily basis, it's kind of like really hard to keep track on what you're doing so you don't lose your muscle mass. So there is a lot of like proven scientific background that protein is actually really good for recovering you, to help you like with your joints, with your skin. It actually recovers your cells as well. So it's a lot of benefits from you when you increase your protein intake. So I always say food comes first, but of course, you know what, when you understand how much protein food actually has, you realize that it's really hard to actually hit the amount of protein that you should have on a daily basis. So you need a complementary product.
Yeah. So we'll come to the products in just a sec. I actually just want to pick up on what you said there. How much protein, on average, the average person, how much protein per day should you be looking at?
So it depends on so many things.
Of course.
Your age, your goals, what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to do. But if you're a normal person, let's say, and you're trying to just like have a really healthy lifestyle, you should have around like 1.2 of your body weight. But also it depends on if you're a woman, if you're a man. If you are, sorry, I'll explain in a second. If you're a woman, if you're a man, if you are, your age range, like it depends on so many things. So for an instance, for example, it's 1.2 grams per kilogram
of your body
So
weight.
if you're, say, let's talk about me because it's easier not to pick on anyone. So if I'm 60 kilograms and I have to have 1.2, so then I go around like 80 to 90 grams of protein a day. And it's hard to do it because if you think about it, once you look at what food you have, an egg has 6 grams.
6.
So if I have
what about a chicken
2
breast?
eggs,
Like that?
chicken breast is around 20 grams.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to hit 80 grams is really hard, right?
If you're working, you know, and
Exactly. And most of us are like, oh, I'm just going to eat pasta. And then what kind of protein do you put in your pasta, right? So you are having food, but you're not having the amount of protein that you should be having. So that's why like having a complementary product, like something that can help you increase that amount of protein can help you. Protein as well, like let's say it's for beauty reasons, right? People like that go to the gym and have protein after, or that even if they don't go to the gym, but they have a lot of protein, it helps them like burn fat and recover their muscles. So when you go to the gym, you should have protein within 30 minutes because it helps you tear your muscles when you are doing exercise, right? So what protein does is kind of like puts your muscles together again, and then you're more efficient. You burn the fat instead of burning your muscles.
So what's actually in your protein powders? I think you've brought one of them here.
This one.
Obviously, it's a processed product, but what are the natural ingredients?
It's actually really funny because protein has been around for so long, and we get told that protein. If you have protein, you're going to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. But it's not as simple advice every man would do it without Arnold Schwarzenegger without with whatever protein. It takes a lot more, right? The thing is what ingredients are in there. Protein became really complicated, and some people like have the protein because it's a full meal replacement. But why are you replacing your food? Have your food, but you're gonna need the extra protein anyway. But have the most natural possible. So we kind of like took that on a side and say, let's simplify this. What does protein need to do to you? It needs to recover you. It needs to bring the amount of grams of protein that you need to have. So it needs to be like protein dense as much as possible. Let's have the best ingredients so it's gut friendly. So it has only 5 ingredients. If you look at
ultra processed.
It's not ultra processed. It's very natural, and we have just 5 ingredients. It's protein, stevia, from the natural form, not from like artificial, so it doesn't taste bad. It has natural flavoring, so it's the real basics. But what we did with Hermosa is, why do people choose their protein for what it does to them? Why don't they choose it for how it does make them feel? For something that taste amazing. Like, so you don't choose your coffee, or you were talking about tea. You don't choose your tea for what it does to you, if it wakes you up or anything. You choose it because it tastes amazing, right? You choose different brands because it makes you feel better and it tastes incredible. Because you know coffee is going to wake you up. You know wine is going to get you drunk. But you choose the wine based on which one tastes better for you, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we wanted with Hermosos. Like, we wanted to create something that was so tasty, because there are some products out there that honestly you have to do this.
Yeah, some of them are.
And they taste like mud.
Yeah.
And then they give you like skin breakouts. They give you like this, they bloat you and everything. And that's because there is so much artificial stuff in them.
Yes.
So that's the difference. And that's why we wanted kind of like to make a difference. So for people to be fitter, have a better nutrition was just a very simple way. Why? Because they choose it because it tastes amazing, and by doing it every day, they just have a better life. That's kind of like the principles.
Well, Erica, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Now, moving on, because still to come, Showbiz journalist Ed Gleave will be here with all your latest Showbiz news, as Dancing on Ice is set to return tomorrow night. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, aren't we all? Here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
For anyone looking for winter sun, I can report very mixed conditions across the Med. Unsettled in Italy with showers in Greece, but across much of Iberia it's fine. Plenty of sunny skies, breezy towards the Canaries. And we've got this area of low pressure moving through Italy. That's going to bring unseasonably windy weather and outbreaks of rain with snow over the mountains. Meanwhile, showery conditions and a strong wind, but mild for Greece for the time of year. And then it turns more settled widely across the Med next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hello. Sorry about that. We're miles away there.
We're talking about protein.
We're talking about protein. All right. Anyway, all of the latest news from the world of TV and film next. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Lauren, let's start with this, shall we? How children's TV may be harming, not helping young minds.
Yeah, so this is an article in the Express today, a big double-page spread as a result of some new research and a new book that's coming out by a child psychologist, saying that children's television, and I think perhaps more importantly, the way that children consume television and video product now is perhaps not as healthy for them as we would hope it would be. And there's quite some distance from children's television of the past, of the sort of the Bagpuss and Clangers and Ivor the Engine era. And I think what's interesting about this is particularly the how children's television is consumed angle, because children are now put in front of screens significantly more often than they were, certainly when I think we were growing up. The content that they are consuming is not great for their brains and their learning and development, which Floella Benjamin of children's television fame is now leading a big crusade to say that some of this is really, really bad for children.
These days, they're not watching the TV that we all watched when we were growing up. They're not even watching GB News in the morning.
What are they thinking?
Would you believe it? But they are watching this absolute drivel all day long on YouTube, and because obviously all our TVs are now connected to the internet, or they're getting TikTok on their TV. It's not even, so they don't even necessarily have to have smartphones or iPads. They can just watch this stuff on TV, and it is rubbish. They are watching it and they're obsessed with it. Oh God, Skibbity Toilet or something. Have you heard of this?
No.
No? Well, you'll have viewers who have got who are parents of sort of 13-year-olds, and this Skibbity Toilet thing is They're all obsessed with it, and this is a really annoying sort of theme tune or thing that they sing at you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back now. Don't forget, keep sending your views and questions on the topics we're discussing today. We'll read them out and have a chat through them. So, as always, you can go to gbnews.com/yoursay. So, Miriam, what have we got in the inbox?
Well, Maureen, following on from our discussion earlier about our reliance on imported gas, she says, it seems ridiculous to me that we're importing fracked gas from the USA at vast cost. We have tons of the stuff beneath our own soil. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that. Paul, about the Chancellor's trip to China, says, Rachel Reeves is signing away our assets in China and giving away rights because of poor decision-making with the budget. Typical. Yes, it does seem a strange time to go abroad.
Yeah, I suspect she'll face quite a lot of criticism for that. I mean, she had to send Darren Jones, her deputy, to the Commons to explain what was going on with the markets because she was about to jet off. I'm not sure it's a great look. Now, moving on, because it's been a very busy few weeks in the land of TV and film. The Traitors dominating conversation online. Dancing on Ice is also set to return tomorrow night as another host of celebs don their skates in a bid to impress the public.
Well, joining us now to chat through all of that and much more is TV and Showbiz editor at the Daily Star, Ed Gleave. Ed, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So there's a lot going on at the moment. I think one of the sad stories out there that we've seen is Richard Hammond, who's split from his wife after, I think, nearly 30 years. Obviously, that's made big news. Is there any more on that?
Well, the reaction has been sort of one of shock, really, I think, because, you know, not many people in showbiz, relationships don't tend to last. So when someone's been married for like 20 plus years, I think people just sort of assume, oh, it's going to last. And also Richard Hammond, you know, she supported him through some really tough times. Obviously, he's had some really high profile incidents while filming, crashes, and she's been there for him. And he's, you know, they've just been together for a long time. Yeah. So I think people weren't expecting it. So when the news came out, I think even hardened journalists were quite shocked.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Yeah. Now, moving on to happier news, I suppose, because that's, you know, it's very unfortunate, but the good news is Dancing on Ice is back. For those who are into it, this tomorrow night, isn't it?
Yeah, back tomorrow at 6:30 on ITV. I think they've got a pretty good lineup. I think there's always a tendency for people to say, oh, there's no one famous. Yeah. Who are these people? But, you know, they've got Steve Redgrave, pretty big deal. They've got a couple of soap stars, Sam Aston from Corrie and Charlie Brooks from EastEnders, Michaela Strachan from Springwatch, and then obviously Holly Willoughby hosts and everyone.
I've actually heard of some of those people.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So I think it's a pretty good lineup because I don't think they've got the budget that I'm a Celebrity's got or Strictly and things like that.
Yeah.
But, and also, it's a pretty dangerous show as well. So, if the agent rings you up and says, do you want to do Dancing on Ice? I think a lot of celebs must turn it down because it is so dangerous. Like, people pull out of that show. It's quite, you know, is quite terrifying. So I think to get some names on that calibre is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Corrie stars. Corrie's also in the news for axing some of their biggest stars. Is this because of costs?
Yeah, so there's a lot of reports that Corrie's struggling money-wise and ITV in general. Some quite big names are leaving. Colson Smith's been there for 14 years. Sue Cleaver's been there for, I think, 25. And there's Charlotte Jordan, it was announced this week, is leaving as well. So there's like, you know, multiple big names announced to be leaving.
Because Coronation Street is really having to compete in the streaming era. People just don't watch it as much, particularly younger people. They're not accidentally discovering it on a 7 p.m. or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, all terrestrial TV, particularly soaps, are struggling with that. But actually, Corrie gets really good ratings. It's by far, without doubt, the most watched of the soaps, particularly on overnights, I think, because they've got a slightly older viewer demographic. But ITV advertising is a difficult thing for ITV at the moment, and that means Corrie's trying to deal with budgets. And because of that, then a lot of the big names like Bill Roach and people like that, Sue Nichols, just aren't appearing in as many episodes anymore. And so a lot of the storylines are going to the younger cast, and so there's just an overall issue with money, it would seem. But I think Corrie will probably weather it because it's an institution, very loyal fan base. The writing is one of its strengths, so I think it'd be fine.
And surely an opportunity for younger actors who are being paid less at the moment, but younger actors to make their name in a British institution.
Absolutely. I think one of the problems I think soaps have had in the last 20 years is they're often so focused on the sort of older classic characters. And I think investing in new characters is a great idea, because I can't think of many characters from the last 20 years that are sort of become iconic. So I think they probably should invest more writing, more time into the younger, newer characters.
Yeah, and just quickly, Ed, on the Traitors, we've got to talk about the Traitors because that's back. It's huge in its third season. What can you tell us?
Well, it's the third year, and if you're not watching, what are you doing? It's outstanding television. It's, as reality TV goes, it's just brilliant. The ratings are bigger than ever. Claudia Winkleman is the hot property at the moment, and she's just brilliant in it. It's just a lovely bit of escapism in January. You know, social media is going wild for it. Yeah. And I think it's something that all ages can enjoy. Yeah. You know, my dad was never a big reality TV fan, but he was like, I'm not sure how I felt about it, but he watched the whole series.
I mean, I must admit, I haven't watched it, and I did have to ask somebody here this morning how it works, but now I'm intrigued because psychologically it's quite messes with your head.
Yeah, it's
anyway, unfortunately,
all over the place.
We're going to have to go, but thank you so much, Ed. We've got lots more coming up in today's show, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back very soon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather report provided by the Met Office. A very chilly start to the weekend for many of us. We've recorded our coldest morning in 4 years with close to minus 19 degrees Celsius reported in northern Scotland. A widely frosty start for England, Wales as well underneath this area of high pressure, but with a secluded front just out across Northern Ireland bringing more in the way of cloud, it has been a milder start here. Pots of light rain and drizzle also moving their way through into western Scotland for this afternoon. Might come with a touch of hill snow around as well. Areas further east will hold on to a bit more sunshine, but underneath those clear skies it is still going to be a very chilly day. Particularly parts of northeastern Scotland will be holding up around freezing at best, 0 to 1 degrees Celsius. Further towards the west though, you'll start to see where this milder air is beginning to push its way in, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, 5 to 7 degrees Celsius as your highs here. But certainly a very chilly day right across the board further east, and that frost will very quickly set in as the night draws in. Some freezing fog patches will also linger throughout much of today. It will be quite misty and murky in places, and they'll turn quite dense during this overnight period as well. Fog also persisting for areas of Northern Ireland during the night and into the start of Sunday morning. Where we see some patchy drizzle around, there could be some icy stretches first thing on Sunday, where that's falling on frozen surfaces, and another widespread frost for the eastern areas, but slightly milder start to the day in the west. As we move throughout Sunday, we're going to start to see those southwesterly winds again bringing in much milder conditions for parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. This will come with some outbreaks of rain for the Outer Hebrides, gales developing here later on, but a generally calmer day for England, Wales, some sunshine around once the freezing fog eventually clears its way off as well. Temperatures though here still struggling a bit, 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. But for all of us, temperatures are going to slowly climb as we head throughout the forthcoming week, a little closer towards average even in the south as we head towards Wednesday. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to win.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
got a special treat for you because we can show you this lovely video of a lady running on a beach. So you're not missing much if you're listening on the radio. It is literally a woman in white writing on the beach, writing 2025.
Yes, because that's the year we're in now.
Is it?
Yes,
Wow.
and it's because Meghan Markle returned to Instagram yesterday.
Former royal correspondent for The Sun, Charles Ray, joins us now. Are you inspired to remember the year, Charles?
Oh, Happy New Year to you too as well. I honestly haven't got a clue what she's doing now. You know, I would have thought we should have had the theme tune from Jaws as she was running down to the water there and everything else. They're being quite hypocritical here because they came off social media because they were getting unparalleled abuse. I don't condone at all. It is not right whatsoever. And they've spent the last few years complaining about social media.
We've seen her before with her lifestyle blog, haven't we? Before she met Prince Harry, she was running a successful blog. Do you think she wants to go back to doing that sort of thing?
I think it's possible that that's what she wants to do. I mean, I don't understand how these things work, okay? But all I know is that certain influencers earn an awful lot of money from Instagram and everything else. Now, they're talking about figures. I mean, whether this is true or not, I have something like £790,000 she could earn per post. You know, so it's quite incredible what she can possibly earn out of this. It's interesting, though, Stephen and Ellie, that she's actually switched off all the comments on this one.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Clearly, she doesn't want to have anybody on there saying anything nasty or anything good about it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, I'm Miriam Kate. I'm here with Adam Cherry, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
Good morning. Great to have your company this morning, and we've got an action-packed show as always because the Chancellor Rachel Reeves is in China this weekend as the UK economy heads further into crisis. And back at home, Nigel Farage's comments on Shamima Begum have stirred up some discussion. We'll have all that and much more in our political roundup very shortly.
Well, there have been fresh warnings from one celebrity doctor over the dangers of cosmetic surgery. Dr. Osh will join us to discuss what to avoid and what trends may be here to stay for 2025.
And do you have any New Year's resolutions? I don't, but I think it's a little bit too late, like you said, isn't it? Oh, well, if not, when was the last time you picked up a book? Also too long ago. But we'll be chatting with the creator of a book club that's a little bit different from the usual. Think local communities, all the hosted events, as well as an exclusive sneak peek at some upcoming books. All very interesting stuff.
Looking forward to that. Well, a hard-boiled egg has overtaken crisps as the go-to snack in Tesco's meal deal. But is the egg protein pot really the snack of the year or just a quirky trend? We'll be taste testing this new favourite combo.
And of course, we'll have all the day's top stories with broadcaster Esther Stanhope and former Apprentice star Trey Lowe.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Live, only here on GB News.
Yeah, that protein, what is it, protein egg? It's just an egg, isn't it?
pot.
Protein
It's
pot
just
egg.
an egg.
A load of rubbish. We'll try it.
But you don't have to boil it yourself because Tesco's have done it for you.
Well, thank you very much, Tesco's. We're going to try it out later and see what we think. Don't forget, we want to hear from you, as always. We'd love to hear what you think about all this. Maybe, do you enjoy protein pots? What's your favourite meal deal? Do get in touch and let us know. Send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say.
But before that, Tatiana Sanchez has all your new headlines.
Miriam, thank you very much. The top stories. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says there's no choice but to engage with China as she seeks to restart Britain's formal economic relationship with the nation. Rachel Reeves has been speaking this morning. She said agreements reached with China today are worth £600 million to the UK over the next 5 years.
Overall, this government's re-engagement with China already sets us on course to deliver up to £1 billion of value for the UK economy. This includes across our financial services, in which the UK is a global leader. Financial services are the engine which power prosperity and growth through deep and liquid capital markets. Our two countries share great pre-existing links in this area, as the highlight of our bilateral economic relationship.
Ms Reeves flew out yesterday after ignoring calls from opposition parties to cancel the trip because of market turmoil back at home. The past week has seen a drop in the pound and an increase in government borrowing costs, which has fuelled speculation of more spending cuts or tax rises. The Tories have accused the Chancellor of having fled to China rather than explain how she'll fix the UK's economy, while the Liberal Democrats say she should stay in Britain and announce a plan B to address market volatility. The British government's independent terrorism legislation reviewer says politicians need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture when it comes to stateless persons and the balance of national security. These comments come after Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said he'd been thoughtful when asked if the UK should consider bringing Shamima Begum back to the UK. This is what Farage had said: "I've never wanted to. I've instinctively never wanted to. But I'm now thoughtful. I'm thoughtful. I don't classify her as an all-out ISIS killer. So she's a lesser part of the equation." Now, this comes after US President-elect Donald Trump's incoming counter-terror chief said that ISIS members in Syria should be allowed home. Reform Chairman Zaya Yousaf responded to the report with our political editor, Christopher Hope.
If anyone actually cares about truth, then they should actually look what Nigel actually said, which was that what's happened in Syria is that there's been regime change. And let's be clear about what's happened as a result of that. You have jihadists in senior government positions. If you are a British citizen and you are concerned that there are people in Syrian prisons that are security threats to the United Kingdom, where would you rather they were sitting? Inside a prison in a now potentially jihadist-controlled Syria, or inside a maximum security prison inside the United Kingdom? And that's what the point Nigel was making.
Nigel was forced to hit back at the reports, writing on social media, "I've never wanted to allow Shamima Begum back into Britain, as I literally say in this interview." Elsewhere, the Health Secretary has warned the use of inflammatory language over grooming gangs risks vilifying entire communities. He also says he fears rhetoric could lead to atrocities such as the Christchurch mosque shootings in New Zealand, which killed more than 50 people. Speaking to reporters, West Streeting says there are people in my community who have either Pakistani heritage or look different who are now more fearful today than they were before. Authorities on Los Angeles have declared a local health emergency for the whole county due to poor air quality as fire and smoke has blanketed the area. They've killed at least 11 people and destroyed over 10,000 homes and businesses. California's governor has called for an independent investigation into how critical fire hydrants ran out of water and were impaired. Also, hundreds of animals are being cared for by humane groups in Southern California. And David Moyes has been appointed Everton manager for the second time following the departure of Sean Dyche. Moyes spent 11 years at Goodison Park before leaving to replace Sir Alex Ferguson at Man United in 2013 and has been out of work since departing from West Ham in the summer. The 61-year-old returns with the Toffees hovering just a single point above the relegation zone. The first game of his second spell is on Wednesday. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Tatiana, thank you. Now, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves is in China this week, despite the markets being in turmoil back home.
Yes, the Chancellor flew out on Friday to build common ground on trade and investment, according to the Treasury. Rachel Reeves says agreements reached with China today are worth £600 million to the UK over the next 5 years.
Also back here at home, Nigel Farage has waded into the Shamima Begum route. He was asked about it at least, saying he is thoughtful about her potential return to the UK in an interview last night. Reform UK leader has hit back at how the interview has been reported, saying, quote, "I never wanted to allow Shamima Begum back into Britain, as I literally say in this interview." Well, joining us now is opinion and feature editor at City AM, Alice Denby. Alice, thank you for joining us. Now, let's start with the economy and Rachel Reeves. What's she doing in China? It's a bit of a bad look, isn't it, when it seems like the pound is tumbling and borrowing is getting more expensive?
Well, I think this was a pre-planned trip, and I think the worst thing you can do when the markets are in turmoil is look like you're panicking. I think there were some calls for her to cancel the trip. I think that would have been a worse look, frankly. Look, she's in China. She's going sort of cap in hand because the economy here is failing. She needs to find growth somewhere, and China is our fourth biggest trading partner. And, you know, it's great to hear her talking about financial services. That is one of the few things, the few bright sparks in the economy and one of our most important exports. So, you know, she's doing the right thing, being out there and talking up Britain's strengths. But the problem is that because of her budget, the Bank of England is not expected to cut interest rates any further this year. Cost of borrowing is spiralling. And as you said in your introduction, the markets are punishing Britain for her terrible budget.
But Alice, there are risks of becoming more integrated, more reliant on trade with China, even if that is in areas of British strength like financial services. Other countries, the EU, the US, are becoming more hawkish on China. I was reading this morning that the UK might be the only country that doesn't have tariffs on Chinese electric cars, for example. Are there dangers in pursuing trade with China in the way that Rachel Reeves is?
Yeah, I mean, there's a political risk, certainly. And as you say, Britain is more open to these electric vehicles from China. That is a political problem for us because these are cheaper and they're going to decimate British car manufacturing. Part of this is a consequence of the government bringing forward the deadline for banning petrol cars and its net zero targets, which, again, as you say, we're going further than many other European countries. But look, I mean, that's the politics of it. The reality is that China is the world's second biggest economy, and as I say, our fourth biggest trading partner. So we do have to have economic relations with them, you know, whether we like it or not. We do need to trade with them.
Now, Alice, just very quickly on Reform UK. As we mentioned, we saw Nigel Farage yesterday say, or he was asked about Shamima Begum really in that interview. And is his position changing on that? Should she be allowed back in the UK? Is this going to damage him, do you think?
Yeah, it sounds like maybe he is changing his position, perhaps being a bit more pragmatic. I mean, this is a real problem for politicians of all stripes. You know, she's been officially made stateless, but you can't just divest yourself of responsibility for people. And with the regime in Syria, it does raise this issue of what we do with our combatants who are over there. And yeah, a political problem for everyone. Nobody wants these people, frankly, but somebody has to take responsibility for them.
It has shone a light on a common trend in politics where a politician will say something thoughtful, which I think is what Farage was doing here, and opponents will jump on it as either an example of a U-turn or something that's outrageous to say. Do you think there's any chance that we might have more honesty in politics this year?
I mean, as you say, this is a problem, and partly it's a problem of social media and Nigel's friend Elon Musk. It's that, you know, everything needs to be summarised in 160 characters. Everything is leaped upon, and the most sort of simplistic or controversial thing people say is what does the most rounds on Twitter. It's part of a problem of having a very lively media landscape, of which GBNews is a great part.
Well, thank you very much, Alice. We'll leave it there for now. That was Alice Denby. Now, to look through the top stories of today, we're joined once again by broadcaster Esther Stanhope and former Apprentice star Trey Lowe. Thank you for joining us once again. Let's get cracking, shall we? Where do you want to start? So we want to talk about, of course,
we could talk about the wildfires.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband flew out to LA when the fires started, because he's producing a film that's going to be out. It's called, ironically, it's called Aussie Voice of the Forest, about forests burning down. It's a children's film.
Blimey.
We may have a picture of the poster. You may be able to show a picture of the poster.
We'll show it during the discussion.
But the thing is, all of the Hollywood, all the glitterati in Palisades area, that's a poster of the film there. And that's about, you know, climate change, climate disasters, about wildfires, about how the climate is now... The world is warming up. OK, it might be arson. However, we are warming up. The Earth is warming up. We have these disastrous fires. And even when Hollywood is on fire in its own disaster movie, they still don't really say, oh, there's a real issue with climate. Now, I don't want to sit here and bang the drum about climate change, but it is a really massive issue. It is an emergency.
And yet, some of these things can be prevented or at least mitigated. And we certainly saw in the Australian wildfires a few years ago, it was blamed on climate change, but actually centuries of managing fires in a traditional way, creating fire breaks, was done away with because they don't want to cut down trees.
I think someone like Gavin Newsom should be held accountable for this, because there are so many ways to stop this. Like you say, fire breaks. They're talking about flame-resistant roofs, etc. Moving away patio furniture away from the home. Like, there's a ton of stuff that could be done. And sometimes you see him being interviewed, they're talking about climate change, but that's not going to make a difference now. Let's all start driving Teslas and suddenly the fires won't impact. What are you going to do now?
Exactly. And they're launching some sort of probe into hydrants and why there wasn't enough water at the appropriate points. And I'm sure... Look,
there was a budget cut as well, I think.
Exactly.
But I think you might have some images to show. But I was getting these images from my husband. He was like, oh, my gosh, I can see flames from the balcony or whatever. So I think there's a picture coming up now and there's actual flames from where he's standing in Santa Monica, which is quite far away from the area.
There we go.
He actually sent me. I was like, "Are you okay?"
So he's in Santa Monica, and this is.
Well, he's flying back right now as we speak.
That's right.
Yeah,
this photo is from Santa Monica.
I think
looking
that's
at the
quite near. Santa Monica.
But you know what's
sort of
interesting
area,
about the Palisades? Apparently they've got water tanks because the elevation is too high for them to have water. So that's hence why they don't have pressure. But you think these are some of the most richest real estate on planet Earth. Surely they'll have practical things that they could do rather than just talking about climate change all the time. It's almost like they're passing a buck.
I don't
what are you
think
doing
they are
on the?
I
heard one of the Californian, I think it was the governor or someone like that talking about it. Governor Newsom or one of the mayors. But they always talk about climate change. But right now, when your house is burning, you want to know about... Like, for instance, they can't even get insurance properly in California. Can you imagine that? Like, practical solutions to the problem that's happening now, rather than talking about climate change.
The whole of civilisational history has been about how we mitigate against nature's risks. I mean, the Great Fire of London woke people up, and instead of building houses in wood, we turned to brick. You know, these are the kind of things that, whether climate change or not, this is what civilization is about.
I mean, that was what, 1666 or whatever
it was.
It was.
You'd have enough time to figure out how to do it, right?
I've got to say, it was terrifying though. When he's like, it's a bit like COVID. People are walking around with masks on. The shops were closing. He'd go and get a coffee, come out of the shop, and they'd say, let's shut the shop. People had masks on, and then when he got his flight yesterday, so he's in the air probably right now, nothing was there. It was completely empty. And he sent me he had sent me a note that even though he was in a different area to where the fire was, he was sent one of those get ready for the evacuation. I think you have
an Amber Alert.
I think it's got. I think you can read it. I can't read it. I haven't got my glasses on. But you can.
Remain vigilant of any threats and be ready to evacuate.
Except if you're a looter and you're thinking, I'm going to go the I'm going to go the opposite way.
But the joke is, he said to me, "Do you think I ought to evacuate?" I was like, you need to come home. Just get out.
Get out.
But I mean,
not everyone has that luxury. That's the problem.
And that's what's sad. And I think people just assume Pacific Palisades, all these places are full of rich A-listers. They're not. They're ordinary people that live there, and it's quite sad. And everyone's like, "Oh, who cares? They're all rich. Nobody, we don't care about them." But these are ordinary people.
Of course. And also look at the footage. It's not just multi-millionaires.
No, it's ordinary people.
Oh, and even multi-millionaires.
I felt sorry for some of them. Was it not Mandy Moore that was like wanting to raise money for relatives, and everyone's going against this? Like, have some humanity.
I think there is a little bit of a competition in LA about, oh yeah, my house burnt down. Oh yeah, my house burnt down. Oh yeah, my cousins at my friends.
My second or third house burnt down.
Various people. I think some famous people, their houses, or their cousin, or their second house, or quite a few houses have burnt down, and it's were they actually there? Probably not.
Well, we'll see. It's still, as I say, it's still a moving story. So it's only getting worse. But we are going to move on to something slightly lighter to try and palate cleanse a little bit here. So, Trey, the moment we'd most like to witness, this is in the Daily Mail, right? So things, if throughout history, that you'd love to have been at, that you weren't born, you couldn't make it. So what's the top one? The top one is the World Cup win, England's World Cup win in 1966. That's the thing that most people wish they'd been around to see. What do you reckon?
They think it's all over. It is now, isn't it? I mean, come on, most people would. And it's funny because it puts pressure on current England teams. I don't know if we're ever going to do it again. So it makes that moment bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like football's coming home. But you would want to watch that. I mean, of course. Demolition of
the second one on this, so they ranked them. The second one, seeing the Beatles.
Oh, I would love that. Definitely, as a musician, 100%.
I saw McCartney twice in December, so...
Oh, wow.
I would love to have,
but I made a huge mistake, and I'll admit it on television here. So I saw it the first time, the whole full way through, brilliant. Second time, I thought, well, I'll get ahead of the traffic. I'll miss it. So I'll go 2 songs early to miss all the scrum.
Yeah.
And Ringo Starr walks out on the last song,
and
so
you
I missed it.
I missed it. Well, that'd be the moment you should go back to.
Yeah,
Would you not pick something further back in history?
I would. I'm glad you said that, right?
Yeah.
Do you know I would? Right? I'm a bit, not conspiracy theory, but a little bit. I'd want to know how the pyramids were built. I'd go back that far. I'm genuinely...
The princess in the tower or something.
Yeah, like, I want to know. I'd want to go back so much further.
I think my mum's actually, when she was born in Egypt, I would like to go back to Cleopatra.
Yeah.
Those times. I've actually got an ankh mini tattoo on my arm, which is the symbol of life of Egypt. So
I'd love to go for that period. I don't know why. It fascinates me. Could you think, how do they do it if modern technology couldn't do that? I'd want to see it.
I can't think of a particular moment, but I would love to experience a time. Like, I've just finished watching the Wolf Hall series about, Henry VIII and Thomas Cromwell, and I wouldn't want to live at that time. Goodness me.
No, you wouldn't want to be getting married to Henry VIII.
I would be his wife.
I would love to know. Yeah.
The one that wasn't beheaded.
There's so much you'd want to go back to. But if there's something fairly modern, I might be a bit selfish when I say this, though. I'd go back to 2008 when Bitcoin was very first made by Satoshi. And rather than spending that on pizza, I'd be buying it all up. That's what I'd do.
That's 1976 and invest in Apple. Wow, yeah.
But you would, though, isn't it? Go back to invest in Apple, Amazon, Bitcoin. I mean, you kind of would, isn't it? And everyone just think it's a fad, it's going to pass, and you're like, yes.
I'm witnessing history. Look at that. Look at that chart go. Brilliant.
I'd like to meet Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
The moment when she sang Happy Birthday to the President. Imagine being there and seeing President Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe.
When these moments happen in the contemporary time, nobody knows that they're going to become moments of great historical importance.
You don't have that. Do you think there's anything that's happened in the last 3 years that you think 20 years from now they're going to look back to? Because it feels like there's not much happening in these modern times.
Liz Truss,
Liz Truss, oh my God. Liz Truss and
Prime Minister.
Oh no, the Queen, there would be people. That's probably the most significant thing in the last 5 years.
I know with the pandemic, but you wouldn't want to. That in terms of history.
Actually, my son always says, bring back COVID. He loved it.
Oh my God.
He loved COVID.
But you know what was good about COVID is the fact that children didn't do much, which was one of the stories that we spoke about that week, 100%. There was something about the stillness that people were forced to stand in, no work, no nothing.
For about 18 months.
It went on for a bit too long,
went down the toilet.
Whilst everyone was having parties and down the street.
Never mind.
We'll get to that later.
Never mind that you didn't invest in Bitcoin, because you could be starting your new year with an incredible £50,000 in cash from us. I don't know if guests are allowed to apply. Anyway, it could all be yours. We will. It's just shortly. This is our GB News Great British Giveaway. Here's all the details you need for a chance to make that £50,000 yours.
Don't miss your chance to
Good luck indeed. Thank you, Esther and Trey, for joining us.
And still to come on the show, we'll be joined in the studio by celebrity doctor and entrepreneur Dr. Osh to discuss some of the latest trends in cosmetic surgery and what to avoid in 2025.
Investigates documentary as we tell the full story of the grooming gang scandal.
My childhood has been stolen.
We will expose the cover-ups that have kept this national scandal under wraps for decades.
Not one person has been held accountable.
Our investigation uncovers the true scale of this outrage.
I want to see senior officials held legally to account.
On GB News. grooming gangs, Britain's shame.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, in the first Film Awards ceremony of the season, the Golden Globes 2025, we need to get used to that, commenced overnight.
Stephanie Tetchy to talk about all of this with...
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, we know the Oscars are like the creme de la creme of film award shows, but it's the Golden Globes which sets the trend, because who we see picking up on the Golden Globes, we tend to see picking up at the BAFTAs, at the Oscars. So last night was a good indicator of what's to come. I would say it was a big year for musicals. We've had this film, Emilia Perez, starring Selena Gomez, Zoe Saldana. It's about a Mexican drug cartel who changes gender, and it's an operatic musical. So the plot sounds crazy, and in fact, it's a musical as well. It was a big night for Demi Moore.
Oh, I love
At the
her.
age of 62, she's just picked up her first film award for The Substance, Best
Well
Actress.
done to her.
It's an amazing film. Ellie, I know you're a big fan of Wicked.
Yes, I watched it for the second time yesterday.
I think I'm about to watch it for the third time because it's that great. Last week, it eclipsed Mamma Mia to become the highest-grossing film for a Broadway musical. Unfortunately, it wasn't a big night for their acting, including Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. They totally got snubbed for awards, but it did win Best Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Prize. It was a big night for the Brits. Baby Reindeer, Richard Gadd, he picked up for the Best Limited Drama Series.
I'm surprised at that, because Baby Reindeer's a bit dark.
That's a lot of people ask him, how has this film got so much success when it's based on a dark plot? And he says, you know what, it's basically human life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, there have been fresh warnings from one celebrity doctor over the dangers of cosmetic surgery.
And as we enter the new year, there's a whole range of new trends and treatments on the market. But how can we make sure we're not getting sucked into a social media fad that could be damaging? Well, to help us answer those questions, we have celebrity Dr. Osh, excuse me, if I can get my words out, joining us now. Thank you for joining us. What do we need to look out for here? What are the problems that people encounter when they're getting cosmetic surgery?
Sure. First of all, about trends, every year specific treatments are more trend, and it's too early to predict what aesthetic treatments trends in 2025. But lately I've observed like a significant shift in client preferences.
Yeah.
Before, clients, they wanted to look different. They were looking for more volumetric result treatments. But now they are more looking for a proportionate result, natural result. And in recent years, some treatments such as biostimulators or energy-based device can it become like it gained very significant popularity, and majority of treatments in recent years was energy-based device and biostimulators rather than a volumetric result.
Okay.
People are moving away from exaggerated feature and more like a volumetric result. They're more looking for natural result.
What do you think is the role of social media in these trends? Because certainly, when I was in my early 20s, I didn't know anybody who had cosmetic surgery or was even considering it. It just wasn't. I mean, people knew that it happened, and you know, breast implants and things like that, but there weren't these range of options, and certainly nobody wanted them. What's changed?
That's certainly true, because social media impact the main role to make specific treatments viral, and it becomes like a culture. When any specific treatment goes on social media, everyone wants to copy and to look like similar. And I remember around 10 years ago, when social media was in the beginning in the aesthetic medicine, clients, they were coming to me with the picture of a different celebrity, and they wanted to look like her, and they just wanted to look completely different. But lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health, rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device. But lately, biostimulators also became very popular. And
what do you mean by biostimulators?
Biostimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or it will lead to postpone the aging process, or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome, or different vitamins and minerals in a form of mesotherapy considered as biostimulators.
Now, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So a lot of people are going abroad to treatment. Turkey's a particularly popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
I advise everywhere, either Turkey or any other countries, to choose the aesthetic practitioner or surgeon very carefully, and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face after all, your body after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible. And sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. It's a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life. So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon, they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools, safety technology? Do they have a good review and testimonials? All this matters to, this criteria is important to just select the best surgeon.
Well, Dr. Roche, thank you very much for joining us here live on GB News. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, lots more to come on the show today. But first, of course, let's get the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says there's no choice but to engage with China as she seeks to restart Britain's formal economic relationship with the nation. Reeves says agreements reached with China today are worth £600 million to the UK over the next 5 years.
Overall, this government's re-engagement with China already sets us on course to deliver up to £1 billion of value for the UK economy. This includes across our financial services, in which the UK is a global leader. Financial services are the engine which power prosperity and growth through deep and liquid capital markets. Our two countries share great pre-existing links in this area as the highlight of our bilateral economic relationship.
The British government's independent terrorism legislation reviewer says politicians need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture when it comes to stateless persons and the balance of national security. His comments come after Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said he'd been thoughtful when asked if the UK should consider bringing Shamima Begum back to the UK. This is what Farage had said. I've never wanted to. I've instinctively never wanted to, but I'm now thoughtful. I'm thoughtful. I don't classify her as an all-out ISIS killer, so she's a lesser part of the equation. Reports have suggested the Reform UK leader said the UK government should consider allowing Begum, who left the country to join the Islamic State group in 2015, to return to the UK. But Nigel was forced to hit back at those reports, writing on social media. He said, "I've never wanted to allow Shamima Begum back into Britain, as I literally say in my interview." And Los Angeles authorities have declared a local health emergency for the whole county due to poor air quality as fire and smoke has blanketed the area. They've killed at least 11 people now and destroyed over 10,000 homes and businesses. California's governor has called for an independent investigation into how critical fire hydrants ran out of water and were impaired. Hundreds of animals are being cared for by humane groups in Southern California. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Now it's back to Saturday Morning Live.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather report provided by the Met Office. A very chilly start to the weekend for many of us. We've recorded our coldest morning in 4 years with close to -19 degrees Celsius reported in northern Scotland. A widely frosty start for England, Wales as well underneath this area of high pressure, but with a secluded front just out across Northern Ireland bringing more in the way of cloud, it has been a milder start here. Pots of light rain and drizzle also moving their way through into western Scotland for this afternoon. Might come with a touch of hill snow around as well. Areas further east will hold on to a bit more sunshine, but underneath those clear skies it is still going to be a very chilly day. Particularly parts of northeastern Scotland will be holding up around freezing at best, 0 to 1 degrees Celsius. Further towards the west though, you'll start to see where this milder air is beginning to push its way in, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, 5 to 7 degrees Celsius as your highs here. But certainly a very chilly day right across the board further east, and that frost will very quickly set in as the night draws in. Some freezing fog patches will also linger throughout much of today. It will be quite misty and murky in places, and they'll turn quite dense during this overnight period as well. Fog also persisting for areas of Northern Ireland during the night and into the start of Sunday morning. Where we see some patchy drizzle around, there could be some icy stretches first thing on Sunday, where that's falling on frozen surfaces, and another widespread frost for the eastern areas, but slightly milder start to the day in the west. As we move throughout Sunday, we're going to start to see those southwesterly winds again bringing in much milder conditions for parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. This will come with some outbreaks of rain for the Outer Hebrides, gales developing here later on, but a generally calmer day for England, Wales, some sunshine around once the freezing fog eventually clears its way off as well. Temperatures though here still struggling a bit, 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. But for all of us, temperatures are going to slowly climb as we head throughout the forthcoming week, a little closer towards average even in the south as we head towards Wednesday. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
To Saturday Morning Live. We've been going through the things you've been saying to us. As always, get in touch from gbnews.com/your-say. What are people saying to us, Miriam? What's going on?
Well, on Rachel Reeves' visit to China, Hugh says when the Conservatives wanted to trade with China, Labour were vitriolic in their opposition to it. Now they're doing the same thing. Is that OK? Very good question. Maureen says Wes Streeting needs to stop being Keir Starmer's mouthpiece and assert himself and his own principles. I wonder if he's actually trying to get back into Starmer's good books, because he has been quite
he's a bit of a
creative in the things he's said recently.
Yeah.
And Ricky says kids can't save when they have to pay for rent in their parents' houses. But I think a lot of parents don't charge their children rent, or they charge them a nominal fee to allow them to. But some parents might charge the full whack. Who knows?
Yeah, I know. But I mean, if you're gonna, fine.
What's the point then?
Why be there otherwise? You know, go and spend half your post-tax income, your net pay on rent, and then
give it to your parents. Get it back in inheritance one day. Maybe that's the.
You know what some do? Actually, what some parents do is quite creative. Is they take all the cash that you pay them as rent, and actually they're investing it for you or whatever. And then at the end they say, "Here's your deposit," or here's a contribution.
Well, it's a very strange time when so much of the asset wealth is with the over 60s and so little with young people. Anyway.
Yeah. Right, let's move on, because we're joined in the studio by a best-selling author known for her gripping London-based crime novels that keeps readers on the edge of her seat.
But she's not just about writing. Emma Talon is also the founder of the Plot Twist Book Club Network, a fresh take on the traditional book club, which combines community, exclusive sneak peeks and even author-hosted events. So welcome to the show, Emma. And you've brought a selection of the books you've actually written.
I have, just thought I'd bring them on to show you all, but these are my crime novels.
Amazing. So how did you get into writing? What kind of genre do you write?
I write, so it's very kind of gritty, organised crime, kind of from the criminal perspective, actually. Modern-day Cray Brothers type thing.
Okay.
So I have 2 series.
We've got lots here.
Yes, 2 7-book series.
Gosh,
thank you. In fact, I bought you each one of these. So
have you signed them?
I have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you're very welcome. That's the first in my second series, Her Revenge. So that's my day job.
But tell us a little bit about the book club as well, because that's the new part of the job, isn't it? What's going on?
Yes, yeah. So obviously books are a huge part of my life. I'm an author. I love to write. I love to read, and I wanted to bring people and books together. I started out doing a book club for my children's school a couple of years ago, which was just a fundraising thing, and it turned out to quite a boozy book club. It was great, because the parents would come along and they'd be like, yes, no children, we can actually talk about something different for a change. The books were great, but
you can see what's going on.
Yes, this is kind of a mix-up of some of our book clubs that we've got going at the moment. And it's great because it's bringing quite a lot of the time now, you find people like going down to the pub to have a drink and a chat to people, but people are looking more and more for places to go and things to do that are a bit more interesting.
Yes.
That give them a reason to get out of the house, that give them something to talk about, and somewhere to meet other people that have similar interests. So this was really popular, and after I left the school I got loads of messages saying, please can you start it up again? So I did, and I decided to make it into a network. So we've got several clubs. We're still quite early on, but we're growing all the time. And it wasn't the plan, but actually they've ended up being completely author-hosted as well. So every host we've got for every club is an author. So you've got someone who literally lives and breathes books.
That's amazing.
Running the clubs, leading the social nights. We do, and it's great because we've got a lot of extra benefits as well. Like people get early excerpts. I've made a deal with a couple of publishers, and so we send out early excerpts of books that aren't yet released to all our members, and they get a lot of discounts and things. So I've made it into quite a big. I want to give people a lot for their, for their subscription, basically. But the main thing is just the community. The friendships that have been formed, the groups that have been formed are absolutely amazing. The people are all fantastic, and it really ranges in age and interest, and it brings a lot of different people together.
That's the thing about reading, or even in the old days when everyone watched the same TV programmes, there's a shared experience. Now with social media, it's so fragmented, it's so bespoke.
Yes.
That the videos that I saw this morning will be completely different to what Alan's seeing, whereas that is a shared experience, isn't it?
It is. And again, like you say about social media, when you're sitting there experiencing it, you're sat on your own, you're looking down, you're not looking at anyone, you're not talking to anybody. And it's just something that it almost forces people to get out, which a lot of people really like. They're kind of using it as an excuse to make themselves get out and to start talking to people. yeah, it's just become a really lovely place. Really lovely place.
I just wanted to actually, during the break, we were talking a little bit about your process as a writer as well. We find that so interesting. Is, you know, how on earth do you go from idea to manuscript to final product, and how long does that take?
Well, there are a lot of tears. You know, there's a lot of crying into, you know, no, it's a painful process, but a beautiful one as well.
Right, okay.
I have to say.
All suffering.
And all authors watching this will be going, yeah, that's basically all the tears and some gin.
A little bit.
No, it's just, you kind of have to, we sit there with a skeleton idea of the story, and it's different for everybody, but for me, I'm very character-led. I'm very dialogue-led, so it kind of flows quite well like that. But it's, you know, first draft is messy, and it's I always think it's awful. I always sort of send it to my editor saying, this is absolutely terrible, it's horrendous, I'm really sorry, don't get rid of me. And she just keeps saying, Emma, it's really not as bad as you think.
When you're reading your own writing and you've been immersed in it for so long, you often lose all sense of perspective, don't you?
Absolutely, you completely do. And then luckily, but that's why editors are so great, because they just say, okay, that's let's pick this apart and let's look at how we can just smooth this up a little bit, and it's very much a joint team effort.
So that's more collaborative than you think. You think being an author is quite a lonely process. I suppose it is initially, but then once you get the editors involved, it becomes more collaborative. Actually, do you find you start thinking the plot will go in one direction, and then by the end you're thinking, how on earth will I end up over here?
Yes, I think once or twice I've sent my editor a book and she said, well, that's not the book I was expecting.
And then there are more tears out there,
but it's good, and let's work with this. Especially when you are very character-led, because the characters, it's almost like they take it away themselves, and you almost don't have control over some parts. But yeah, it's very collaborative.
So is the book club open to anybody? How could viewers sign up?
Yes,
if they want to
absolutely.
Do that?
It's open to everybody. We have a website, which is plottwistbookclub.com, and that's just showing the virtual book club, which we're actually launching hopefully in the next few weeks.
Oh, very good.
So we have physical book clubs where you get the paperback, you get the hosted social night, you get all the benefits and the community, and obviously the online community. The virtual book club is everything is the same except for the meetup's going to be online. So it's for people who perhaps can't make it,
or live a long way
from the nearest club, or we haven't opened one there yet. But yeah, so it's open to anyone, and the more the merrier.
Yeah,
really.
Well, there's been such a decline in reading, not only in children but adults as well, because of
yes.
So this is a fantastic.
Good way to get it back on track.
Well done.
Well, Emma, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you. You're very welcome. I hope you enjoy them.
Of course. Now,
absolutely.
Moving on, because still to come, we'll be joined in the studio by celebrity chef and author Jameson Stocks. This is going to be a good one. To taste test some supermarket meal deals. Looking forward to it. But first, if you are in search of some winter sun, as we all are, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
For anyone looking for winter sun, I can report very mixed conditions across the Med. Unsettled in Italy with showers in Greece, but across much of Iberia it's fine. Plenty of sunny skies, breezy towards the Canaries. And we've got this area of low pressure moving through Italy. That's going to bring unseasonably windy weather and outbreaks of rain with snow over the mountains. Meanwhile, showery conditions and a strong wind, but mild for Greece for the time of year. And then it turns more settled widely across the Med next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
We'll be taste testing what is reportedly Britain's new favourite meal deal next. This is Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Have you noticed that more and more stores are closing? Well, last year, apparently 13,000 stores closed for the last time on the high street.
Well, experts warn the worst is still to come for our small businesses.
Well, let's talk to retail expert Jeremy Baker. Good morning to you, Jeremy. How bad is it and what can be done?
Well, nothing can be done about it. Retail is like that. It's a boom and bust operation. So last year, let's say you had a shop and it was booming. This year, the consumer can just change their mind. They don't need to come back to your shop ever again.
Well, it is sad, Jeremy, because our high streets are the beating heart of our communities, aren't they? And for many people, I know I can relate to my high street, it is such a depressing sight, walking down there and seeing them all boarded up and closed down.
But how often do you walk down that boarded up high street? I think people move on to something else. The online world is very big. Yeah. And lots of other things are very exciting. And so people, you know, the shop, I like to go to my GP in a shopping centre and get my tests done there rather than tramp off all the way to the GP, for example. And children could go to little schools in the high street. I've seen that happen already. So lots of things could happen to the high street. It could be much more a social centre. Much more kind of like pubs, coffee shops, all that. Charities. I don't see anything wrong with charities taking over. But the idea of the shop-centred high street, finished, that's gone. Never coming back. Goodbye. It's not sad, it's just life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, a hard-boiled egg in a pot has overtaken a packet of crisps as Britain's new favourite snack from Tesco.
For the past 3 years, customers have been choosing flame-grilled steak crisps as their go-to snack alongside a breakfast sandwich.
Nice.
But supermarket giant announced this week that shoppers now prefer a 90-gram egg protein pot, just an egg, as their go-to snack, paired with a chicken club sandwich. So a bit of a change in taste.
Yeah, now, obviously, we had to see what all the fuss is about. So I am delighted to say that we are carrying out a meal deal taste test of our own, of course, including those infamous hard-boiled eggs. You can smell them in the studio. It's a good job we don't have smell-o-vision because no one would tune in. Anyway, here we are. So
joining us now, we've got celebrity chef Jameson Stocks. I'm not sure this would be what would be in your on your menu in your restaurant, but nevertheless, what do you think about the nation's new favourite taste?
I was quite surprised, actually, but to be honest with you, having eggs is far better than having crisps.
It's healthier, but I mean, it does sting the place out a bit if you're having a meal deal in the office. Surely. Have some respect for the colleagues.
It does, yeah, but ideally, I think the supermarkets should really sell them in the shell so people can actually peel it themselves and they don't need to put any preservatives in it.
Yeah, that's
because you don't know what they're actually putting in the packet for it to preserve.
It is quite interesting, though. I mean, leaving aside what the heck they do to it to make it last that long, but that people are moving away from these kind of ultra-processed snack foods like crisps onto something that, on the face of it, at least, is a lot healthier and a lot more natural. Do you think that is a trend, or just...?
Definitely. I feel that's a trend, not just in kind of meal deals and stuff, but in trend in general, you know. If you go to Europe and places, the meal deals include celery, tomatoes, salads, all sorts. In fact, in South Africa, where I do a lot of my work, part of the meal deal, you actually get a little soup, which is quite nice as well. So
we are the ultra-processed food capital of Europe, aren't we? I mean,
we are, unfortunately.
What are the dangers of that, of relying too much on ultra-processed food?
Well, you become addictive to certain things, and then your mood changes. You get different sorts of preservatives and different sorts of foods. So ideally, you really want to eat as fresh as possible. That's why I kind of like the idea of doing it in the shell.
And also, what I didn't realise before I was finding out some more about this recently was that a lot of the ultra-processed foods, they're deliberately designed to either be soft, so you don't have to chew them very much, so you don't feel so you don't feel full, so you don't go and buy more, or they're satisfying, they've got a crunch like crisp, but contain a huge amount of calories for what is quite a small snack.
See, I don't eat crisps at all, and my children don't either. I like the idea of, putting the egg in there. I prefer a bit of celery or some carrots or something personally.
Do you know what? We're looking at this food. No one's eating it. I'm going to change.
Go on, Adam.
I'm going for it. I'm going for it.
Adam, what are you going to get?
I've had one of these. Well, obviously, I've had eggs. It will surprise you. But I've never had it from the meal deal, so it's a bit okay.
Go on, I'm going to let you do this because I don't really want to eat that. And sandwiches are a bit difficult to eat.
So look inside that. Oh, it's not too bad.
It looks fairly natural, doesn't it?
I don't know which camera to look. There we go. It's an egg. All right. There we go. Breaking news.
See, my worry would be with how old's the egg been there?
I can smell it now.
I don't know how long it's been there.
And what's it packed in? I'm sure it's fine. This is all about convenience, isn't it? And our lives have changed so much. In times gone by, everybody would have taken a packed lunch or gone home for lunch.
I agree.
Whereas now, convenience is the order of the day. Is there any way we can blend the two, convenience with freshness?
Well, I personally would buy a packet of 6 eggs, boil them the night before, and just leave them in the fridge.
Yeah.
And then you know exactly how fresh they are.
Yeah.
You know exactly where they've come from. Yeah. You can get, range-free, farm-free, whatever you want, whatever. You can even get duck eggs are even nicer than chicken eggs.
Really?
Yeah.
Duck eggs? What are they? Are they
more richer?
And bigger?
Bigger and more richer, a little bit more expensive, but more fulfilling. But I wouldn't trust how long the eggs have been on the shelf, personally. The fact that that's quite fresh looking and it hasn't got a black ring around it shows that it's quite fresh.
Well, I mean, it tastes all right. Seems to be doing the job.
We'll take your word for it, Adam.
Right, well, finally have to...
Shall I take over for a little bit and just let you finish? Thank you so much, James.
No worries.
And great to see you again. Thanks, everybody at home, for watching us as well on Saturday Morning Live today. So Adam and I, we've had a great time.
Yes, thanks for having
joining us.
Don't go anywhere. Dawn Neeson is up next. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather report provided by the Met Office. A very chilly start to the weekend for many of us. We've recorded our coldest morning in 4 years with close to minus 19 degrees Celsius reported in northern Scotland. A widely frosty start for England, Wales as well underneath this area of high pressure, but with a secluded front just out across Northern Ireland bringing more in the way of cloud, it has been a milder start here. Pots of light rain and drizzle also moving their way through into western Scotland for this afternoon. Might come with a touch of hill snow around as well. Areas further east will hold on to a bit more sunshine, but underneath those clear skies it is still going to be a very chilly day. Particularly parts of northeastern Scotland will be holding up around freezing at best, 0 to 1 degrees Celsius. Further towards the west though, you'll start to see where this milder air is beginning to push its way in, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, 5 to 7 degrees Celsius as your highs here. But certainly a very chilly day right across the board further east, and that frost will very quickly set in as the night draws in. Some freezing fog patches will also linger throughout much of today. It will be quite misty and murky in places, and they'll turn quite dense during this overnight period as well. Fog also persisting for areas of Northern Ireland during the night and into the start of Sunday morning. Where we see some patchy drizzle around, there could be some icy stretches first thing on Sunday, where that's falling on frozen surfaces, and another widespread frost for the eastern areas, but slightly milder start to the day in the west. As we move throughout Sunday, we're going to start to see those southwesterly winds again bringing in much milder conditions for parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. This will come with some outbreaks of rain for the Outer Hebrides, gales developing here later on, but a generally calmer day for England, Wales, some sunshine around once the freezing fog eventually clears its way off as well. Temperatures though here still struggling a bit, 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, but for all of us temperatures are going to slowly climb